lecture, right? So
Yeah.
I've been given a couple times
I would
already.
say I don't love this presentation.
Okay.
Um,
Is it me?
No, no. Mostly because it frames this as a consumer problem rather than a production problem, which is exactly what the industry wants, right? Like DuPont, Shell Polymers, Exxon Mobil, they are always funding these recycling advocacy
You are correct.
programs. And they're also selling a myth of recyclability. So a lot of, like, we just learned in a presentation last month about how there's not a market for many of these plastics, especially now that China is like, we don't want your messy garbage anymore. And a lot of these plastics, just because it's got that little recycling symbol on it, doesn't mean it's recyclable. But it makes us feel good to see that, to be like, oh, I'm not doing anything bad because it's got this recycling symbol on it. So I'm not a huge.
Yep. Okay, so here's some numbers for you. So only 1% of those little flimsy plastic bags are recycled, and about 9% of other plastics are recycled nationwide. I'm not sure what the numbers are here in Florida. You're exactly right, but you're so young that you probably don't know this unless your parents told you. But back when we were kids, and I'd say probably till the time I was in college, when you bought a glass soda bottle, you paid a deposit on it.
That's right.
By golly, you brought it back, and a lot of them got recycled. And I know Michigan and several New England states and California. Yeah, just think about the wine bottles that all of you consume. If we could recycle wine bottles, what a savings that would be.
I'll get some more comments here, Valerie.
So we have in essence what is a policy issue that's being framed as a personal consumption and awareness issue, when that is not the case. I mean, I religiously recycle. Every week I'm bringing bags to Publix, styrofoam to Publix, fill my trunk of other people's styrofoam. And that's the issue, is that, you know, in my county we have single stream recycling, and that is part of the problem as to how little gets recycled. But the larger problem is to how much is produced, and that, you know, there's no negative effects for these negative externalities that plastic producers are putting on the world.
No, I agree. One thing we learned in the last lecture that we came to here was that aluminum cans are almost always recycled. So if you know, I like bottled beer myself, but I started buying aluminum cans after that lecture because they get recycled, and there is a market for them.
We're told the future of wine is in cans.
Well, oh yeah, I meant to tell you that. So in Europe, there's a lot of places now, you know, obviously people still drink beer, but a lot more people drink wine now, and they actually have taps in the grocery store, so you bring your own bottle and fill it up with wine and put the cork in it. And wow. But yeah, I think we should open that on Park Avenue. So I'm going to take one right here.
The one thing that's come to my mind recently is medication bottles.
Yeah.
And we buy our medications at the Publix pharmacy, and I went in there the other day and I said, if I bring back these medication bottles, will you recycle them? And the lady I talked to said, we will take them and we will dispose of them. And I said, does that mean they'll be reused? No, we'll just dispose of them. But then I went in the other day and talked to a different young man, and he said, oh yes, we'll take them back, and if you have soaked the labels off of them, we will reuse them. Really? So I don't know what's really true.
They would have to put them through some kind of cleansing.
They're not going to do it. There's a different line of pollution.
I don't recycle medical.
Rachel, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, I was thinking on the whole thing, which is refuse, maybe that's where you integrate more into trying to get across the whole idea of, you know, talking about preventing the problem in the first place.
Well, maybe you go to the pharmacy with an envelope, with a paper envelope, and say, put my pills in here.
Well, I mean, but I mean, she's talking about even further back upstream. the other thing, because Publix, you know, we have heard is the main reason we don't have
Plastic bag.
plastic bag bans and things like that. As I said, I put
Boycott.
together all of my film in the Bounty bags when I get my paper towels or whatever, you know, toilet paper, those things. And I just shove everything that's a plastic film in there and I leave it at Publix. Because I figure they said they want it, or, you know, they have it, that's their
I mean, we could
issue
al-
to deal with.
I mean, we also could do a public boycotting of that, because I mean, their lobbyists have stopped and stymied the recycling and bagging here. The refuse part, I've tried to do like at Clemens Produce. I bring my own my containers, and they did it for a while, but then the legal person that represents them said they couldn't do it anymore. So now I can't do that. They put them back in the plastic bag. So I refuse. I don't get lunch meats anymore and cheese. So that's how I do it.
Well, how about this lady back?
Oh,
Hi, yes, for your presentation, can you add action items that people can do instead of leaving feeling defeated? Like maybe give Public's phone number or their email address and say everyone contact them and ask them to stop, you know, using plastic bags or something like that, but include some kind of action items in the presentation?
activists.
I think that's a good idea. I'm not going to do that, but.
Speaker for your own.
That's, it's not something that the speaker should do.
Oh,
This,
okay.
you have to think of this as an education. And all of you here are very, very astute and aware of what's going on in the environment. But there's a lot of people that are not. And my criticism of this PowerPoint is that it doesn't tell you specifically, you know, what you can throw and where you can throw it. I mean, it gives you kind of long names to things, and who knows what a plastic bag is made out of. You know, I think it has to be a little bit more elementary.
Well, then,
For the common
then if you're
order.
going to be more elementary, then you can add action items, like here's your plastic bag and this is what you can do with it.
But you can do examples, maybe, examples.
Do what?
Examples.
Go ahead.
As I said, this is an educational, it is not an advocacy. And that's the two prongs of the league. One is education and one is advocacy. This does not have any advocacy.
But that's not what she was suggesting as an advocate. You know, Katrina was suggesting advocacy. You were suggesting this is what you do with this type of thing, which
Yeah,
is
but-
education.
Mhm.
I think what I would suggest, like if we're looking at this as a public education tool, I would suggest that we use it as a way to debunk myths of recyclability. Like I think this perpetuates the idea that all these things are recyclable that are really not, or are actually going to be recycled because there's not a market, there's not the technology to recycle a lot of these. So I think if people understood that, oh, just because I throw it in the bin doesn't mean it's actually recyclable. Just because it has that symbol on it doesn't mean it's actually recyclable. Maybe I should just reduce my consumption instead of thinking, oh, it's okay for me to consume this because it's got that symbol on it.
But we did learn
thought
last
that's a
month
very
that
good point.
I thought that was
in
a
Orange
very strong
County,
point.
the waste management does recycle plastic, and they recycle
Yeah.
all the plastic.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
I think
Some
the
of it
point that
don't.
was brought up by more than one speaker, if under refuse, there was some simple
Exactly.
statistics, like only 1% of the world's plastic bags are ever recycled, only 9% of other plastic is
Yeah.
ever recycled. And in the US, just so we don't think it's the third world problem, and in the US, how much plastic bags and how much of the rest of the plastic is recycled. If you had that as comparison, and I think people would see that, oh, the refuse is a huge, not the number one part of it, probably the huge part of it. And because you're right, you completely, after a while you forget. You might have started out with refuse, but you go right on the rest, and it gets kind of buried. I think that's a real valid point.
Okay, what should the league, I mean, okay.
But that's still education.
This was created by, I just saw Environment Committee down in Broward County, Big Wood Voters, which the state has adopted as a state presentation, is that
Mhm.
Well,
correct?
yeah.
Yes.
What do we want to do in this group? Do we want to give them some feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's, I mean, I agree with, I don't, Patrice. I mean, I believe in Europe, it's the producer side that is responsible for the disposal. So they design their product to be least costly, so they reduce their product. So that's a long-term solution. We're not gonna fix it here. But we can maybe start educating, putting the percentage of reality, and try to, maybe we approach this more of as a modification of behavior, to refuse or try to, that's already, you know, can you either don't buy the product or find something else. That you have a choice of a plastic box for eggs or cardboard. Which one do you choose? Cardboard. I mean, I do
Can
that
you give
with-
us some guidance here? Is
Can
the
we do
league
it?
interested
Can it
in
be
any
revised?
feedback?
Oh, yes, and
Oh,
that's
good.
what I was gonna suggest, is if you as a committee would formulate your opposition,
Let's
so
do a
to speak.
subcommittee.
Well, critique.
I would
Not
say
suggestions,
critique.
yeah.
No,
Okay.
why don't we,
Or
why don't we put a subcommittee on this, and let's take the PowerPoint, let's modify it. We have some religion here.
And I
So
will
let's-
take it to the chairperson, the Florida State Chair of the Speakers Bureau, and tell her these are our critiques.
We have a subcommittee who would like to work on putting a critique together.
And then I think you have two audiences here, may I interject? Because you actually, solar energy is a direct responsible thing that happened based on an influence of small children. If we design this project to be for 3rd or 4th graders, besides adults, but there's nothing like a little 8-year-old coming and bugging the hell out of you and make you do the right thing. 'Cause that's why we have solar energy today, co-ops. No, a couple of little kids, you can give the story. But that's the reason why we have that.
There were 11.
Okay, 11, all right, there you go. This is, but that's, I mean, so you design 2 products, one for the adults, they're hard.
Maybe we should start with one group.
Well, I'm just saying, you have to have your focus group design.
Okay, and who would like to be on the subcommittee? Rachel? Gabby? Anyone else?
I'll assist.
Eugene? Okay, can you capture that? Patrice?
No, I mean, I think there still is a role
Yeah,
for
sure.
recycling. I mean, I don't want to lose that. I understand what you're saying as a message. But I also think that, you know, the more we do, like at least that's 9%, potentially less, even if that's what's reused. I mean, and the other thing is that even if it's not reused, I think it's managed better going through the recycling system, because it ends up in landfills rather than just being dumped out in other places. And it could be managed probably in different landfills than just regular garbage landfills. So there might be different ways that they manage it.
And if we'd like to take a field trip, Waste Management would host a tour.
Let's do it.
Over at
Which I think
Cocoa.
we should do.
Yeah, so let's go see what they're doing.
Is that where everything's happening now? We've closed
Well, there's
one
more
on
than
Pine-
one, well,
We have one on Pine,
well, one in
That was a
Orange County
transfer
landfill.
station. That was
Yeah,
different.
decommissioned.
Transfer
Right, but there's, you know, there are a variety of recycling facilities,
Okay.
and markets can be local, so.
The closest facility is in Cocoa, and that's where most of Orange County stuff goes.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I have a question for the committee. So this PowerPoint presentation has been now presented to a group of League of Women Voters, but getting support, would this be used at a Hot Topics luncheon, or would it be, I mean, would I go to the Rotary Club and say, hey guys, I'm with the League to educate you on this? And
That's the purpose of all the PowerPoints that the league does, that the state does, and disseminates to
Going into
the
the
local
community.
leagues.
So how, as a league member, me wanting to go, so I would go and say, I have this plastics,
Right.
and I'm gonna go to all my Rotary Club friends and all my different groups, and I'm gonna present this. So is there anyone in this room who would like to go and present this and start doing that? Because we're the environmental committee, and that's what would be a good thing for us to present this to other things. I know we all are very busy, but is anybody in here willing to present it to another
Not in this
group?
form.
not in this
Yeah, that's
form.
what I was gonna say that too.
Okay, in a better form, is anybody?
Yeah, would anybody go do this?
If nobody's gonna do it,
Well-
then we don't need to make the presentation.
Well, I think we need to design
Well, you
it
have
and
to
then
figure out who
decide.
the
Let's
target
work on it
audience
first.
But that's the point, is the league, like, sometimes you get requests from groups to do
Yes.
these things. But, and there's like a list of all the PowerPoints that the league has available, and then if someone who's a speaker and looking to do speakers, for their club, they
Right.
would ask the league, and they would contact you, and then you would
Right.
contact one of us.
And I get requests through our website.
Well, I think there's two things. There's our immediate audience, statewide, which is this. If, you know, if we were gonna use it here, the first question would be, you know, figure out who's our target audience, where would it be useful to bring it?
But it's
certainly-
everyone.
Yes, but that was,
Well,
let me
adults,
finish, that's my point.
adults,
Wait, wait,
children.
let me
Okay, now,
finish.
let's use
I
our
wanted to
subcommittee
finish,
to
which
answer
is
that.
even if we didn't use it here immediately locally, but we saw a benefit to improving it, so that wherever it is used, it would be more useful. I still think the effort is not wasted.
Right. Okay, well, let's use our subcommittee address, who's the target audience, what should be the message, and how do you deliver it? Yeah, we heard, Sarah talk about, so.
In line with that, can you distribute the waste management
Yes.
slides? So
Well,
make
the
it available.
presentation we heard from Raymond Randall last month, he's shared those, and I will send it to the subcommittee, but if anybody else wants